Copyright Frequency 99. Imprint, Frequency 99, Ocala, Florida, USA. All rights reserved. This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual events or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Stewart, Brink, Legionnaire by David Edward. December 1835. Brink. A gruff male voice rang out in the darkness. There was no reply. Brink. Get your butt in gear. Let's go. The same voice speaking French. Nothing. Brink. Last call before I assume you're a deserter. Shut up, someone yelled from inside one of the four-man tents. He's on guard by the wall. We're sleeping. The Legionnaires were well disciplined, but they were also hyper-protective of the brief moments when they got quiet or downtime. I'm a damn officer. Address me as my rank or sir? The loud voice yelled from somewhere in the darkness. Yes, mon aspirant moron, the voice from inside the tent returned. Many other men could be heard laughing from all the nearby tents. An aspirant was a cadet, an officer in training, not yet commissioned. The insubordination would have been severely punished if the officer had been a lieutenant or higher in rank. Aspirant Jacques turned and stormed off, heading to the outer wall where the guard detail was. Just wait, you clowns, he muttered to himself under his breath, looking forward to the day when he was promoted to second lieutenant and would not have to suffer enlisted fools anymore. The sky in the east was just starting to brighten. Jacques noticed the sky, but did not pay it any mind. He was occupied with finding Brink and delivering the bad news and getting ready to leave at the end of the day that was just starting. He walked across the compound inside the hastily built walls of the vast fort. The fort glowed in the early morning light, made from the orange sands of the Sahara with African muscle and French sweat. When he reached the front, there were two sets of gates. The guard on duty facing the inner courtyard watched him approach. When he got close, he stood and waited for the man to salute, but he just stood there with a smirk on his face. You plan on lifting that arm, soldier? Be ashamed to roust the commandant for a hanging so early in the morning. It will set his whole schedule behind for the day. The guard smirked at Jacques and extended his arm forward instead of raising it to salute. Then he made a gesture with his fingers as a sign of no respect. Jacques returned the gesture and walked past the interior guard. After 2 more months, my aspirant candidacy expires, and I'm a second lieutenant. These apes are going to rue the day. But he knew that wouldn't really be the case. A couple weeks before his date, all the enlisted would start treating him extra nice, as though it would make up for the year of torment. But Jacques had seen it happen to other aspirants, and they never seemed to hold the grudge through the promotion. I'm going to be different. I'm going to remember these disrespectful apes for as long as I live, and I'm going to even the playing field and then some. He didn't believe his vibrato, though, but it made him feel better. Arrête, someone yelled stop in French. Fruit bat came from the darkness. Jacques knew the voice. It was Stewart Brink, the American, the man he was looking for. Flounder, Jacques said quickly, issuing his response using the challenge response of the day. It's aspirant Jacques approaching. Brink snapped to attention and issued a crisp salute when Jacques got close and was visible. As you were, Legionnaire, Jacques returned, relishing the exchange and show of proper respect. Brink switched from attention to at ease, placing his right arm behind his back and extending his left arm forward, holding the long rifle with its butt on the ground. Sir, Brink said loudly as he changed positions. Brink, new orders came through a couple hours ago, Jacques said. Yes, sir, Brink said. I've been expecting them. No offense, sir, but isn't it traditional for the commandant himself to make the notification about citizenship? What? Jacques was momentarily surprised, then realized what had happened. This was the conversation he had been dreading. You're one of the first, Brink. There are no traditions about this yet. We have orders, Brink, so get the sand out of your ears. These are pressing matters. No time for your American softness. Sir, Jacques immediately regretted adding in the last part. You're right, Legionnaire. My mistake and apologies. You are a French citizen now, but we still have new orders. Your enlistment has been extended, but it does not change the terms of your initial contract. After 5 years, you have earned your citizenship. I don't understand, sir. We're promoting you and extending your enlistment for another 2 years. Brink was confused, so he stayed quiet. Jacques stretched out his hand, which had something in it. Brink looked at the closed fist, still in shock. He finally extended his hand, palm up. Jacques dropped 2 small pieces of metal into his open hand. Brink brought his palm up close to his eyes so he could see what it was in the darkness. "Sir, I'm sorry, sir, but these are Brigadier Chief insignia. That would be quite the promotion, as I am currently a second-class Legionnaire." Soldiers on their first enlistment remained second-class Legionnaires, the equivalent to a private in an American outfit. Only if they re-enlisted was promotion possible. The Brigadier Chief was the highest enlisted rank before becoming a non-commissioned officer before the level of sergeant. Many men only made it to Brigadier Chief after their 3rd enlistment, 15 years in. "Put them on, Legion," Jacques corrected himself. "I mean Brigadier Chief. Our orders require we send at least 1 senior chief and 1 officer." Brink immediately understood. "Yes, sir. So they are promoting me, so they don't have to send a real Frenchman, and they are sending you because you are the lowest-ranking officer within 100 miles. Jacques was not happy about it either. "They don't expect us to make it back," he stated flatly. "But they are no fools. We both have an incentive. You make it back, you keep your new citizenship, and your career in the Legion is made, already a Brigadier Chief. You will make non-com before the end of your 2-year extension, and you have a real chance of making adjutant if you enlist again." He looked up at the brightening sky. "I make it back, my promotion goes through, and I'm a lieutenant in the Legion." Brink followed Jacques' gaze to the sky. "I've been awake for nearly 30 hours, sir. Are we leaving after my guard shift? Typically, we get to sleep the next day." Jacques looked at Brink, the light better. Both men could more easily see each other now that the sun was almost up. "We're leaving at dusk and we'll be traveling through the night. You have time to sleep and prepare." "Yes, sir." "And Brink?" "Yes, sir." "Congratulations on your promotion. I'm sorry it wasn't presented with more pomp and circumstance." "Yes, sir." Brink sat on the cot in the duty recovery tent. 4 other Legionnaires were in the tent, each on their own cot, each sound asleep in recovery from the same duty that Brink had just finished. The recovery tent was off from the central courtyard where the other Legionnaires would exercise and then drill, practicing this charge or that parry. All this was done at first light before the day's heat became debilitating. Brink looked at the other sleeping men and then at the new rank insignia in his hand. These bastards know how to throw an incentive at someone. They walk the line so well. Extending my contract without consulting me is par for the course. But doing it and simultaneously sending me on what seems like a one-way mission instead of someone who actually earned the rank required? It's an insult, but Brigadier Chief is no joke. They're right, it gives me a ready-made career, a shot at some actual retirement, and a solid pension. Brink had humble desires. His upbringing in extreme poverty in Louisiana set a low bar for cultural extravagance. A good week growing up was 4 solid meals, somewhere in there getting to eat more than once every other day. In the Legion, he received 3 hots and a cot, as they said. The lowliest Legion duty consistently created better living conditions than the best days of his youth. Brink had never told anyone about his ultimate goal, not just becoming a French citizen through foreign military service, but then using that citizenship to become a French chef. It will take longer, but if I retire after 3 more enlistments, even if they never promote me again, I'll have enough pension to live like a king. If I then learn to cook from the French masters, I'll be a made man. His mind continued to race, and sleep continued to avoid him. Still, after a few more minutes of sitting in the cool tent on the comfortable cot, listening to the other men sleep, the fatigue from the duty and being awake for a day and a half caught up to him. As soon as he put his head down, he slept hard and did not dream. Brink and Jacques rode out the main gate with 2 weeks' provisions, each on 2 camels, just as the sun set. It would still be light for another hour or more. They were heading north and west, directly away from Timbuktu and into the middle of the harsh western Sahara Desert. The fort had been constructed as the farthest northern outlier to Timbuktu. Timbuktu itself wasn't much more than a trading station anymore, and of course, an early warning station to the actual civilization of southern Mali and the gateway to the more temperate countries of Bamako and Burkina Faso. Hundreds of years ago, Timbuktu was the epicenter of culture and civilization. Now, it was a smaller town with lots of abandoned buildings. Jacques had waited until they departed to fill Brink in on the details of their orders. "We have to cover about 200 miles. I figure it will take us a week," Jacques started. "We're heading all the way to northern Mali, near the border with Mauritania." "The salt mines?" Brink asked, familiar, as all Legionnaires were, with the general geography of Mali. "More like salt farms. They work the ground, not into it like a traditional mine. But yes, we call them salt mines, and that's where we are heading." Brink nodded. "Our purpose?" "Supposedly, there was a worker uprising," Jacques said flatly, clearly holding something back. "Supposedly, sir? They say they have the ringleader in custody. It turns out he's the eldest of a local tribal chieftain. Why would anyone in a tribal leader's family be working the salt mines? Why indeed? The riot by the workers severely injured Khan Malgan. I understand he will live, but he has lost both legs as part of his injuries." "Khan Malgan?" Brink said the name back, trying to place it. It was familiar. He had been told the name in some Legion briefing. Finally, he remembered. "The prince? The son to the Mali king and heir apparent?" "Yes," Jacques said. "The king wishes for us to bring justice. Why doesn't he do it himself? Why involve outsiders like us?" Jacques nodded, almost to himself, replying to something in his head. "I asked the same question. Apparently, the local tribal chieftain is an emerging warlord. The king demands justice for his son, but he seems unwilling to do it himself for fear of starting a civil war. France wants the salt. France can solve the problem." "Exactly, Brigadier Chief," Jacques said. "But how can we solve anything with just 2 of us, if we were sending a whole company, or even 2 or 3 squads, but just the 2 of us?" Jacques looked back up to the sky, which was almost completely dark now. Both he and Brink were wearing their desert fighting uniforms, off-white long sleeves with the traditional kepi hat and its twin tails that would protect their necks from the sun during the day and help hold in their body heat when it got cold at night. Jacques hardened. "We'll just have to figure it out, Brigadier Chief." "Yes, sir." They rode on in silence into the night for several hours. The temperature dropped and it started to get cold. It was still easy enough to see. There were few clouds and a bright moon. "Sir?" Brink asked after a good amount of time had passed. "Yes, Brigadier Chief." "Sir, without breaking any protocols, can you tell me why they extended my enlistment to send me on this mission?" Jacques had been anticipating this question. "Your contract can be extended for up to 5 years. You know that. You read what you signed, correct, Brigadier Chief?" "Of course, sir. I didn't mean if they had the authority. I mean why. I'm the first foreigner to complete the 5 years of service. I would have thought that would have counted for something." Jacques looked at Brink and felt empathy. "I shouldn't risk allowing an enlisted man to feel comfortable around me," Jacques thought to himself. "But let's be honest, we're not coming back from this. I've just been kidding myself pretending I'll make lieutenant. We're heading to Taudenit because no one else will go, an expendable set that gets the Legion off the hook for having tried. If I tell Brink the truth, will he abandon the mission? I don't think so. He is a well-disciplined soldier. He has a right to know." "Brigadier Chief," Jacques started, "have you ever wondered why you get the most dangerous assignments?" "I figured it was hazing, sir, to make me earn citizenship, to prove I'm willing to do the work and put in the time. Yes, that is certainly part of it, but there is another reason." Brink knew in his heart what the reason was, but had never allowed himself to fully accept it. "I know it, sir. While the Legion welcomed my contract and accepted me, some outside the Legion are not fans of allowing foreigners to become citizens this way." "Yes, but it's not only those outside the Legion. The Legion is country enough for men like you and me. Do you really need France as well?" Jacques asked. Brink was quiet, so Jacques continued. "The plan was to bolster our ranks with foreign troops under certain promises. It never occurred to anyone that those men would survive their 5-year enlistment. It never occurred to them that they would ever be confronted with actually extending citizenship to an enlistee. What about you, sir? There are 2 of us on this trek." Jacques smiled and took his hat off. The desert temperature was at that special place where it was very pleasant. On its way from blistering heat to freezing cold, it was going to be nice for the next hour or so. For me, Brigadier Chief, I was simply unlucky enough to be the lowest-ranking officer in the regiment. For me, it's nothing but luck. Brink was quiet for just a moment, then asked, "Yes, sir, but why are you here in the first place? I'm seeking citizenship, but you already have it." Jacques laughed. It was a manly laugh. Jacques was no milquetoast, he was just young. "I come from a good family, Brigadier Chief. My father's connections can open a lot of doors for me, but I cannot walk through many of them without military service, even if they have already been opened." "I don't understand," Brink said, and he honestly didn't. His aspirations were from humble beginnings and led to modest ends. "Brigadier Chief, you say you want citizenship. How much do you know about our history, about what is going on politically now?" "Sir, I know France is the greatest place to live in the world. I know its language and grew up with many of its customs, but I know nothing about politics, if that is what you are asking." "Fair enough, Brigadier Chief. Let's just keep it simple then. A man like me can go far after military service, a regional governor, a senator, or an assemblyman." "Is that what you want, sir?" Jacques thought for a moment, then nodded his head. "It is, Brigadier Chief. But what about you? Surely there is more to your life goals than simple citizenship." Brink answered right away. He didn't have to think about this one. "Sir, I plan on studying the culinary arts when I am out." Jacques laughed again, from his belly this time. "What?" Brink sounded hurt. "Don't pout, Brigadier Chief. I am laughing with joy. It's the simple things, isn't it? We are in the middle of this godforsaken desert, probably riding to our doom. And I am doing it to become a two-bit politician, and you are doing it to become a French cook." "We prefer the term chef, sir," Brink said, somewhere between serious and not. Jacques studied Brink for a few moments in the darkness. "Well corrected, Brigadier Chief. In any case, we're two fools in for a long ride." The journey was otherwise uneventful. It took them 6 days of riding. The weather was generally good. There were a few clouds in the sky here and there, which kept the temperature from ballooning out of control. It was still hot, but there was a stark difference between 95 degrees Fahrenheit with the clouds and 105 degrees Fahrenheit without them. In a few more months, the temperatures would be 20 degrees higher. The Taudinate salt mines were both massive and dreary. They spread out for miles in all directions. The workers would dig a large, wide, shallow hole down about a foot or two through red clay to access the salt. Once through the clay, they cut the dried and compressed salt into large cubes, maybe a 1.5 feet square. There was a system of moving the cubes to staging areas, which provided pickup points for rows of camel riders who formed caravans to transport the salt away. Even in December, the mildest month temperature-wise, heat radiated off the sand, red clay, and open excavation areas. All that was in the distance, though. In front of Jacques and Brink was the Czar de Smida, the walled city, more like a fortified village that stood south of the mining work. The walls looked a lot like the walls surrounding the post they had come from, only these were taller and showed signs of constant repair. The patched and layered look of the clay bricks made quite a depressing sight. The two riders stopped their mounts well away from the open main entrance. "I should have asked." Jacques took his riding gloves off and used them to dust and thump sand off his uniform. "How is your Bambara?" Brink smiled. "Good, sir. How's yours?" Jacques gave Brink a fake and exaggerated look of indignation. "While it rolls off my tongue like a cheese grater and assaults my ears like small arms fire, I am as fluent as a drunk native, or better, my good sir." The Bambara were the people of Mali and native to West Africa in general. They held Mali as an empire, although they were losing their grip on it to the Fula Muslim fighters under Sekou Amadou of Messina, a rival kingdom to the south. Currently, the primary income of Mali was derived from salt from mines such as this one, making this location pivotal to the Bambara's survival as a kingdom. Once he finished dusting his uniform off, Jacques put his gloves back on. "All right, Brigadier Chief, play the part of my adjunct. Crisp, yes, sirs. Look around, but don't look like you are looking around. And above all else, only speak when spoken to. Whoever we're dealing with in there will want to believe they are negotiating with France herself when they talk to us. Yes, sir, Brink said. What do you think we're walking into? Jacques looked past the high wall to the salt fields that span as far as the eye could see. See all the workers? Yes. If there was a worker revolt that wounded a prince, Brigadier Chief, would the fields be this productive? Brink followed Jacques' gaze and watched the activity for a few moments. Jacques was right. The work going on was near frantic. Given the heat and doldrum of the tasks, revolt or not, there was no way the workers should be as dedicated and energetic as they seemed. They do seem pretty into their work, sir. Jacques chuckled as they both watched. And notice, Brigadier Chief, that none of the workers are under the lash. Whatever is going on, thousands of Bambara out there are working themselves to exhaustion without team bosses or the threat of punishment. They had watched for a while longer and then proceeded to the front gate. The guards were not wearing uniforms or insignia, not that they usually would have been. Still, it made it impossible through simple observation to deduce which Bambara faction was currently in charge of the salt fields and the walled city. The Bambara also all spoke the same language without prominent regional accents. There are a lot of armed men inside the walls, Brigadier Chief. Something is not right. Stay alert, Jacques said in French softly under his breath to Brink. Yes, sir, Brink said, holding the camel reins with his left hand while casually unsnapping the small leather strap that secured his revolver and a matching strap that secured his short, curved sword. He noticed Jacques very subtly doing the same. One good thing about the promotion is that I can carry the rapier, Brink said. Jacques nodded as he continued to scan the interior. 4 Bambaran warriors were leading them forward, deeper into the heart of the walled town. 1 Bambara each held the camel reins, the other walking a few feet in front to clear the crowded, narrow main street. There were street vendors on either side of the main throughway. The street was packed, but on close inspection, much of the crowd consisted of variations of the 4 men leading them forward. But, while tense, they arrived safely at a central building. It looked like an administrative structure that had been converted into a living area. Some royal ornamentation had been added here and there on the outside, creating a very eclectic presentation. Leave your weapons here before you enter the home of our prince, one of the nondescript warriors turned to say, as they all stopped at the tall steps leading up to the building proper. Jacques did not miss a beat. He was in full officer mode. Nonsense. The French and the Bambara are friends. He sounded like a combination of scholar and boss. We will need our weapons as much as you need yours should an enemy attempt to interrupt our important discussions. The 4 men exchanged glances. The one who spoke didn't seem to know what to do. After a few moments of confusion, he nodded to one of the other men, who nodded back and ran up the steps and into the building. Going for help? Brink asked Jacques. Instructions, I suspect, Jacques said, remaining stoic and firm. He dismounted his camel and removed his riding gloves. Brink did the same. Several tense moments passed with the other 3 warriors unsure what to do. Eventually, there was some commotion at the top of the steps. A tall, thin man appeared at the top, looking down the 20 feet from the base of the building to the street below the entry steps. He had dark skin and a white beard. His face looked almost gaunt, some combination of healthy and undernourished. He wore the traditional Bambara robe of an elder, but it was more ornate than all but the highest nobles. The robe was a faded blue, almost purple and white. He had a bright red and white turban wrapped around the top of his head and tied so that a long piece flowed down his back. His appearance seemed to create quite the stir. The crowd around the palace slowed down, and there was much less talking as everyone turned to watch. Who is that? Jacques asked one of the 3 warriors still standing close. The man turned. His face showed irritation at the question. That is His Highness, Khan Malgan, son of the great king, ruler of this land. His legs seemed to be working pretty good. Brink leaned close to Jacques and spoke softly. Indeed, Jacques said, not taking his eyes off Khan Malgan or turning his body. Suddenly, Khan Malgan lifted his arms straight out to his side and yelled, "Freedom!" in Bambara. The crowd cheered and returned the call. "Freedom! Freedom!" they repeated. A loud silence fell over the entire center area, everyone turning to look at Jacques and Brink. Con Morgan kept his arms in the air and yelled, addressing Brink formally and publicly, "How was your journey, my French comrades?" Jacques snapped to attention and offered Con Morgan a crisp military salute, then yelled in a voice matching the volume and intensity of the original question, "We had no problems, my friend. The desert was kind to us, and we left her as we found her." The crowd bristled, a few people clapped, but not many. Jacques knew the custom and needed to follow through with the Bambara greeting ceremony, especially on the public stage Con Morgan had set. "How is it here? Did you have a good night's sleep?" Con Morgan laughed and raised his arms even higher. "I did, my friend. Everyone sleeps like a little French baby here. Isn't that right?" He turned to play to the crowd for the last part of his call. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. "And how do my French friends sleep?" Con Morgan called down after the cheering stopped. "We sleep the same, only like Bambara children after a pleasant rain," Jacques yelled up. The crowd cheered more than the first time Jacques spoke, but nowhere near as much as when Con Morgan did. Still, it was a particularly good sign. "And how is your French Prime Minister? Does he sleep well and enjoy peace?" Con Morgan called down. "He does, my friend, in large part because of his friendship with Mali and in appreciation of your labors here," Jacques returned loudly. The crowd cheered louder still. "And your father, good prince, and your family, they know peace?" Jacques called up. This was the final element of the formal greeting. The crowd stopped cheering, and the entire mood changed when Jacques mentioned the king, Con Morgan's father. "Uh-oh," Brink said. "Quiet, Brigadier Chief," Jacques said calmly, focused on Con Morgan. Both Legionnaires were on full alert. The air was still, waiting like everyone else to see what would happen next. Con Morgan put his arms down and showed concern. He clearly was a polished public speaker, able to highlight and exaggerate his gestures to convey different emotions. "Come on up, my good friends," he said loudly but somberly for all to hear, playing to the crowd again. "I believe we have discovered something important to discuss." The crowd erupted in applause, hoots, and the chanting of the name Con Morgan. The interior of the building was just as oddly eclectic as its exterior. It was a combination of a humble administrative office that had been decorated to try and make it look more like a royal palace. The decorations didn't work. It was clear what the place was, but it did create the impression that Con Morgan was a man who got things done, even with limited resources. The place smelled like cinnamon incense. It was a very pleasant smell that somehow made sense subconsciously. Inside the building was a large room where Con Morgan held court. It was lit from daylight peeking through slits in the roof. A red carpet ended before a large, elevated block of cushions and blankets where Con Morgan walked to and sat down. The incense also masked the scent of death. Lining the walls of the room were 6 human heads, 3 on the right side of the room and 3 on the left. The heads were fully intact, ending just below the chin where the neck began. The faces drooped and showed pain. One head was very fresh, and the others showed significant signs of decay. Con Morgan saw Jacques and Brink looking at the heads. He made a sweeping motion with his arm, indicating pillows and cushions set up at the base of the pedestal he was on. The pillows were ornate, but nowhere near as nice in quality or craftsmanship as Con Morgan's arrangement on the elevated platform. "I see you have noticed, my friends," Con Morgan said, indicating the heads on display, a big smile on his face. "Rivals, great prince?" Jacques asked in a polite and knowing tone. Brink had to admit he was impressed with how Jacques was handling everything. While Jacques was just an officer in training, an aspirant, he carried himself with the dignity of French royalty. "Allies, dear commander," Con Morgan said, giving a quizzical look to the 2 other men in the room, one standing to the platform's right and one to the left. "They are allies. Now, you are correct that they were adversaries at the time of their deaths, but now their spirits whisper support to our ancestors." "And the newest addition there?" Jacques asked, indicating the obvious new head in the collection. Con Morgan allowed a broad, menacing smile to cross his lips. "You are observant, my friend. That one has no name. I have taken its history and removed its tongue, so it has no voice. No, my friend, that one there, it gets to observe, but no more." "Prince Con Morgan," Jacques started but was interrupted. "Friends," Con Morgan said. Sit, We have done the greeting, but it is not yet time for business. You are my guests, and I must honor you as visitors to my house." He gestured with his hand again, indicating the building they were in. Suddenly, servants with trays entered from a side door, followed by several women dressed as belly dancers, followed by more women with towels and buckets of water. "Let us eat, and let my women wash your feet so that you may be completely recovered from your long journey," Con Morgan said as he started to select a few small plates of fruits from one of the serving trays. Brink started to take his shoes off, but Jacques quickly spoke. "Hold there, Brigadier Chief. I understand the chance to have your feet washed by pretty girls is tempting, but we cannot be caught flat-footed, as they say." Brink straightened, somewhere between embarrassed he had to be corrected and disappointed at not being able to partake in the princely hospitality. Con Morgan watched the exchange, amused. "Commander," he said, "you know I will be offended if you turn down my offer of hospitality?" "Of course, Prince Con Morgan," Jacques said very politely. "We accept your hospitality, but as professional soldiers, legionnaires, no less, part of our oath requires us to remain in uniform and at the ready when we are undertaking a commission from the French people." He thought for a moment when he saw Con Morgan's expression sour a little. "Great Prince, it is a deeply important show of respect. And Jacques knew it keeps us from being caught without our shoes on, should you not be as friendly as you are projecting." After all that, Jacques and Brink sat on the pillows and ate small amounts of the fresh fruit and cooked meats they were served. It was quite the display. The belly dancers danced. A small group made music with drums made from wood and animal hide, and the servers continued to bring delicacies that neither Jacques nor Brink had ever tasted. After about an hour, Prince Con Morgan seemed ready to engage in a more formal discussion. "Commander," Con Morgan said, motioning for a servant who quickly appeared and cleared all the food and utensils away, "I am afraid I brought you here under false pretenses." Jacques knew the actual meeting was starting. He stood up and motioned for Brink to do the same. "Prince Con Morgan, my friend, I suspected as much when my brigadier chief noticed the excellent working condition of your legs." Con Morgan roared with laughter, kicking his feet in the air to show that they indeed worked. "May I tell you a story, Commander?" he said after he stopped laughing at his own joke. "I would prefer a true story, Prince Con Morgan, my good friend," Jacques said very politically. Con Morgan smiled. "Of course, all of my stories are true." He made a gesture, and 3 giant warriors emerged from the shadows. The man in the middle was carrying a shiny orange chest, maybe 2 feet wide and 1 foot high and deep each. It had been ornate and looked incredibly old, now terribly beat up. So much so that it looked like someone had been smashing it with rocks and who knew what else. The man holding the chest placed it on a table that all could see. One of the small slits in the roof was letting in sunlight that showed on the table and illuminated the box. "Are you going to suggest this is the Ark of the Covenant?" Jacques asked, legitimately surprised at the obvious age and sturdiness of the object. "Better, my friend," Con Morgan said. "Let me tell you my story." Con Morgan began his speech. 100 centuries ago, my people lived here in this same land, but the land was different then. It was a paradise. It rained every day, and the earth was kind, fertile. Many exotic plants were grown, and many delicacies hung from their tall branches. A man could walk, pick fruit from the trees, and eat his fill. Every day, there were few hardships. Not like today, where everything is a hardship, where the sun is hot and curses the land. Our ancient name was Babaroi. They were the beginnings of the Bambara, as we now call ourselves. We started as a brutal people, powerful, influential. We took what we wanted, and the men of other nations would quake at the sound of our approaching footsteps and our war cry. We bordered what is today Mauritania to the west. In the beginning times, the people there called themselves Atarantians. Do you know this name? "No, Prince," Jacques said, listening intently. Conmon nodded and continued. "I would not expect you to. Today you call the people of that land Moors, but they are just more Bambara, like us. The Atarantians used to live in a great city to the west, on the plain that slopes to the sea. In those days, a great river ran from Algeria to the sea, and it ran through Juraif, where this city was. The Atarantians were a great people. knowledgeable in the ways of agriculture and horsemanship. They were ruled by a great king named Atlas. I know that name, Prince Khan Magan, Jacques spoke. That is an old name. The mountains in Morocco are named after that king, King Atlas, the Atlas Mountains. Excellent, Commander. May I continue my tale? Of course, my friend. I apologize for the interruption, Jacques said, bowing slightly to suggest he had meant no disrespect from his interruption. But as in all things, the Atarantians became prideful. Over time, they wanted to expand their influence. They launched 1,000 ships, sailing around the continent in the ocean. They attacked all the nations in the Mediterranean. They conquered Libya and Egypt. They conquered Spain and Italy. The Barbaroi lived here. From here, up into the mountains that are the border between Mali and Niger, all the way to southern Algeria. Khan Magan paused and looked at Jacques. Do you believe me? He asked. Jacques was surprised by the question, but he recovered quickly. We are friends, Prince. Of course I believe you. Good. We, you and I, must know the same things about our history and this land for this to work. For what to work, Prince? Jacques asked. Khan Magan nodded, as though he had finally taught a dim student a basic lesson. Look at the box on the table. Jacques and Brink both looked from the prince to the box. Do you see how the light reflects where it touches the metal? Khan Magan said, also now studying the chest intently. Yes, I have never seen metal react to sunlight that way, Jacques admitted. It is made from orichalcum, Khan Magan said, as though that answered a question. It seems to have resisted many attempts to be opened. Khan Magan smiled again. Only this time, the smile was not accompanied by any theatrics. It has resisted all attempts, he said. Orichalcum is a conundrum. If it is hot out, like the days, the box is cold. If it is cold out, like at night, the metal is warm. When placed in sunlight, it darkens. When placed in darkness, it glows a soft orange light. It is lightweight until someone picks it up, then heavy until it is put down. And my good commander, as you can see, it remains locked when we wish it to be opened. Temperamental, Jacques said, unsure what else to say, but the prince seemed to be waiting for his observation. Yes, Khan Magan yelled. I knew my good French friend would understand. It is a temperamental box, like most of my many wives. But, Commander, do you see the front of the box? Yes. What do you see there? May I step closer to examine it, Prince? Of course. Jacques stepped off the carpet and walked over to the table. The box did look very beat up and very, very old. There is a crest on what I assume would be a key latch. Very good, Khan Magan said, leaning forward, waiting for something. The crest is very odd. It looks like it has writing on it, but it is not a language I am familiar with. The crest is of a strong and proud-looking man, but his head is long. Behind him is what looks like islands in a vast lake. Circles of islands, I think. Very good. And? Khan Magan said. Jacques realized he was very heavily focused on the object. The way the light seemed to be absorbed into the metal was almost hypnotic. Jacques snapped himself out of it and pulled his gaze from the chest. May I move the crest to see what is underneath? Jacques asked, recognizing that the crest was on tiny hinges. It looked like the cover to something. Khan Magan stood up and stretched. Your curiosity and observation skills are excellent, Commander, he said as he stepped over to the box and stood beside Jacques. Then he reached out and pushed the crest sideways, exposing an ornate keyhole underneath. Jacques leaned back in to look closely at the exposed mechanism. Prince, you have had your master craftsman try and pick the lock, as well as smash the chest open? Yes. As with all things with this chest, the key mechanism is unmovable whenever we try and use tools to open it. The mechanism is movable if we use the same tools with no skill. It only freezes up when an artisan with the proper skills is involved. The two men were standing close together. When Jacques spoke next, it was in a softer voice, so only Khan Magan and Brink could hear him. You want my brigadier chief and I to go somewhere and retrieve the key, don't you? I do, Commander. And you can't send your men because you are at war with a local warlord or some similar restraint. That is correct, Commander. And you had to bring us here under a false premise because France would not have sent us otherwise, Jacques said, then realized something else. And because you could not risk the request being intercepted. If others knew what you had here, they would covet it, compounding your problems. Right again, Commander. I must ask, good Prince, What do you believe to be in the box? Khan Magan looked Jacques in the eye and held his gaze for a few moments before speaking again, sizing the man up. It contains an ancient decree from this centuries-old king. It is believed to also contain a map, an incredibly detailed map of the kingdom as it was back then. We could learn where the metal the box is made of comes from and how to use it. It would make us invincible. Jacques remained somber. So this really is like the Ark. I was only kidding before. This is a weapon that can make an army stronger and help defeat her enemies. It is, Commander. And it can make the person who controls the metal and who sells the metal enormously powerful as well. And you wish to share this discovery with France. Jacques suddenly realized he was negotiating for his whole country, for something that, if discovered, could change the balance of power not just in Africa but in the world as well. I wish to share it with my friends. You are my friend, Commander. You can represent France if you like, or perhaps just represent yourself. You know, Prince, you address me as Commander, but the Legion does not have a rank with that title. I am only an aspirant, a cadet. I will receive my formal commission upon my return from this mission. Of course I know all this, Khan Magan said shrewdly. Where do you believe the key to be? Northern Tunisia, at the eastern base of the Atlas Mountains. How do you know this? Jacques asked. The head you so admired when you came in, the one I took the tongue from so that it may not speak to my ancestors. Or to anyone else. Jacques finished as both men smiled broadly at the other. Sir, Brink said as they rode north through the salt flats, back on their camels and with a month's fresh provisions each. I'm a little hazy about some of the details of our new parameters. It was midday. The clouds had done a good job so far of managing the heat, but they were starting to clear so the afternoon temperature could start to climb. You sent the dispatch, correct, Brigadier Chief? Jacques said without turning around. Of course, sir, as ordered, word for word. What did it say? Brink remembered what it said, of course. He just sent it before they left. It said that our assignment to help the king and deal with the situation was going to take us north and west, across Western Sahara, and ultimately to Tunisia. There is a substantial Legion presence in Tunisia, Brigadier Chief, Jacques said, answering a different question than what Brink had asked. Sir, it is important I understand to some degree what we are doing and what agreement was made with Prince Khan Magan. Brink was not comfortable challenging Jacques, but he understood his duties as second in command. There was Legion protocol for handling mission parameters, and the second was always briefed in case something happened to the first. Those new rank insignia are heavy on the shoulders? Jacques asked, turning around this time and smiling. Brink did not return the smile, still confused. For a few moments back there, I thought he was going to ask us to transport that chest. He believes it is too precious to be moved. So, what are we doing then, sir? We are going to get the key for the box, Brigadier Chief. That seems unlikely, sir. If the chest is a fraction of the age the prince believes, there is little chance to wander around Tunisia looking for a 1,000-year-old key holder. 10,000 years old, if the prince is to be believed. Then what, though, sir? Let's say we happen to find it. We find a 10,000-year-old key around some Moor's neck, and he is willing to trade it to us. We'll have ridden 1,000 miles. We are just going to turn around and ride 1,000 miles back to Taoudanit. There is no chance the man who holds the key will give it up, Brigadier Chief. How can you know that, sir? Because it is in a museum, on display for all to see. The museum curator will consider it a prized possession. What museum? The Bardo National Museum. It's on the avenue of Ali Habib Slim Thohir in the capital city of Tunis, right across from the Tunisian parliament. So how will we convince the Tunisians to part with an item from their museum? Brink asked. He liked where this was going less and less. Well, Brigadier Chief, you and I have 2 months of hard travel across 1,000 miles of the most inhospitable desert on the planet to figure that out. It ended up taking 3.5 months for them to cross Western Sahara. They finally reached Ganoush, a port town on the eastern side of Tunisia on the Mediterranean Sea. There was a Legion garrison there. Jacques was able to negotiate housing for both of them. It took them over 2 weeks to recover from their travels. Jacques was busy coordinating things. he was able to secure passage on the train that ran into Tunis along the coast. Their destination was still over 100 miles away. Jocks and Brink got up early on a Saturday and caught the train. Unlike their trip across the desert, they could not carry swords and rifles on civilian transportation or into Tunis proper, so each man was armed only with a revolver they wore on their belt. Brink had a knife strapped to his ankle and a pair of brass knuckles in his pocket, 2 items he had won playing cards at the garrison during his downtime. Because no one knew him at the garrison, Brink quickly discovered his new rank provided several advantages. He was able to enter a world in the Legion that had been denied to him prior. When people saw the Brigadier Chief insignia, they simply assumed he was a lifer and had much more time in service than he actually did. Brink found himself not correcting people's assumptions. On the train, they sat in a private first-class cabin. The trip would take about 4 hours, given all the stops. Prince Khan Morgan is a man of his word, Brigadier Chief. Jock said once everything was settled and the men were seated in the spacious and comfortable cabin. Brink just nodded back, not sure where Jock was going with the comment. He sent us money to help with the trip. The Mali dynasty is fading, but they are still influential and very wealthy, all other things equal, Jock said. Is that how we could get this nice cabin? Brink asked. If he had any challenges during his time with Jocks, it was that the officer sometimes spoke very technical and sometimes in very abstract terms. Brink did not do well with the abstract. Jock smiled, understanding Brink's pragmatic worldview. It is, Brigadier Chief, and we'll be staying at a nice hotel in Tunis as well. Consider it a celebration of my promotion to second lieutenant. Jock wore the shiny new solid bronze bars of his new rank. Well deserved, sir, and your plan is still as we discussed? Brink asked. It is. We'll keep it simple. This afternoon, you and I will attend the museum and find the display with the key. I feel like we should have a bit more of a plan, sir, Brink said, sounding doubtful. All things in time, Brigadier Chief. Let's just get a look at the thing and its environment. Then we can devise our plot. The museum was awe-inspiring. It used arch lights, a new invention that turned electricity into light. The whole place was well lit, making it easy to appreciate the artifacts and historical objects. There were a lot of items from the ancient Phoenician city of Carthage, and many displays showing battles between Hannibal and Rome from 2,000 years ago. Every culture sees history differently, Jacques said casually to Brink as they both admired the inventory and slowly walked through the large building and its many corridors and displays. There were a few other people around, but not many. Brink didn't know how to respond to the comment, so he just nodded. Then he noticed a standing block of wood with an object over it in the corner of the room they were in. Sir, that looks like a key, he said, indicating the stand. Jacques walked over and read the small inscription on the stand. Made from an exotic combination of metals, this key is an example of early cultures transitioning from nomadic to agrarian, where craftsmen had the time to specialize. Agrarian? Brink asked. Farming, Jacques said, or more specifically, improving and cultivating the land. Brink nodded as both men stared at the key. Brigadier Chief, is it my imagination, or is the only thing between that key and us this thin piece of velvet rope? Brink nodded again and looked around. I don't even see any guards or staff in this area, he said. Watch my back, Jacques said. I'm going to grab the key and put it in my pocket. Sir, Brink said quickly before Jacques could move. I don't think we should do it. Jacques was caught off guard. What? Brigadier Chief? Explain yourself and quickly. We're legionaries, sir. Should we really be stealing from Tunisian museums? Jacques was visibly upset. You're picking a hell of a time for a moral dilemma, Brigadier Chief. We've had nearly 3 months to discuss this, and you choose now to offer a counterpoint. I don't know, sir. Maybe it's cold feet. I just never saw myself as a thief. A security guard entered and walked the room, apparently on a standard patrol through the building. Jacques looked at Brink intently, then the security guard, then the key. His face changed. It hardened some. Well said, Brigadier Chief. You have passed your test. He slapped Brink on the back of his shoulder. I was getting nervous about how far to take this. What? Brink was as confused with Jacques as he had ever been. I don't understand, sir. Brigadier Chief, do you think the Legion would simply triple promote a soldier from Legionnaire second class to Brigadier Chief without some evaluation of their character? Jacques said, sounding scholarly and wise. The guard made his rounds and continued down the hallway to another room. After he left, Jacques continued, You are the first foreign national France has even granted citizenship to for military service. We had to be sure you were of high moral character. Jacques slapped Brink on the shoulder again. Sir, Brink snapped to attention. I do not fully understand, sir, but if you are telling me that we are not going to. Brink lowered his voice and looked around. Procure the key, then I am relieved. Jacques relaxed. I can't believe he bought it, he thought to himself, reformulating the best approach and what to do with Brink. After more conversation, basically the same one again in a few different ways, as Brink tried to orientate himself to the tale Jacques was telling, they walked back to the train and rode it back to the garrison in Ganouche. When Brink woke up the following day, he dressed, ate breakfast, and went to the armorer where Jacques had told him to report. Brink expected they would retrieve their traveling gear and weapons and begin the return trip to their unit in Mali. He waited for several hours, but Jacques never showed up. Brink wasn't sure what to do, so he went back to his quarters, thinking maybe he had gotten the instructions wrong and that Jacques would be back there waiting for him, irritated that Brink was missing. But Jacques was not there either. Brink walked back to the armorer, who told him no one had been looking for him. He walked the area, even stopping into the officers' club and asking around for Jacques, just in case. Eventually, the day was over. Brink went back to his quarters and slept an uneasy sleep. When he got up the next day, he made the same rounds as before, checking everywhere. It took half the day. This time, when he stopped by the officers' club, he noticed the headline of one of the local papers, delivered each morning for the officers to read. The headline said, Mystery of Missing Relic Deepens. Brink picked up the paper and read the article. There was not much to it. Apparently, someone had broken into the Bardo National Museum and stolen a small metal key from one of the displays. The key was not considered overly valuable, and the article mostly pondered why someone would walk past hundreds of items worth millions of dollars and only take the one key. Brink, of course, knew why. What should I do? He pondered. I have no idea how to explain the past 3 months to an officer. They will be pissed, and they will seriously consider shooting the messenger. Since leaving the fort north of Timbuktu, Brink had had a complete change of heart. His new rank provided success beyond any aspiration he had ever had. The idea of staying in the Legion as a brigadier chief, and the real chance the new rank provided for further advancement, was too appealing to pass up. I have to figure something out. What if Jacques is moving on to the next mission phase, and my part is over? What if he ordered me to return to the garrison, wait a week so he could move unnoticed, then report in and request my next assignment? That would give me 5 more days of rest and relaxation, a paid vacation. Then when I report in, I will tell them that I want to do a full re-enlistment, not just the 2-year extension. They will be so preoccupied with that they won't worry about anything else. I can scope out the duty sergeants, find the one who needs some recruitment points the most, and put the focus on them. Brink waited the extra days and did exactly as he had planned. No one showed any curiosity. The Legion was more than happy to re-enlist him. He was assigned to a new special unit in Sudan on the other side of Africa from his prior outfit. As he had hoped, he made the rank of adjutant chief by his 3rd enlistment, a towering achievement for a poor kid from Louisiana. He survived several battles and was even awarded the French Cross for military valor during a ferocious campaign in the Lower Congo. He never heard from Officer Jacques again. As far as he knew, no one did. Brink had no idea if Jacques went AWOL, was injured or killed, or completed the mission and returned the key to Prince Khan Magan in Mali. After a while, he didn't think much about it anymore. After his 4th enlistment, Brink retired with a 2/3 pension and his French citizenship fully in place. He met a lovely French woman, and they married and had 6 French children. He was able to use the money from his pension to buy a small house in the French countryside near the small town of Champortat. Having never learned to cook, but still drawn to the hospitality trades, Brink opened a small 8-table coffee shop where he spent most of his days. One day, when Brink was very old, a parcel arrived at the coffee shop addressed to him. It was a small package with brown paper wrapped around a small jewelry box. There was a note on the outside of the package. Brink opened it. There were 4 words typed from a typewriter that dropped the lowercase letter E a few millimeters too low each time the letter was used. It said, "Be careful with it." Brink opened the small package, and inside was the ancient-looking metal key with a thick looped cord that suggested the key could be worn around a person's neck. The key darkened in the bright sunlight and was warm to the touch, a pleasant feeling on this cold French day. Brink nodded to himself, remembering the adventure many years before across the Sahara. "What's that?" Brink's wife asked as she walked by, bringing coffee out to a few of the shop's patrons, snooping over his shoulder. Brink smiled and placed the key around his neck, tucking the small object under his shirt. It's nothing, a relic from a bygone era," he said, pressing his hand against the thing from outside his shirt. "It looked like a key," she said, watching him suspiciously. He smiled at her, his mood brightening. "Now, honey, how could it be a key? Keys open things, but this has nothing left to open. It's a trinket from a friend in the Legion, that's all." She shrugged her shoulders and delivered her coffees. Brink watched. He put his hand over the key again, pressing through his shirt into his skin. The key continued to be warm, which was a pleasant feeling. Then, Brink had a thought. "I should write down my adventures. As the first person to ever receive citizenship by enlisting in the Legion, it might be a story people are interested in." The end. More Stewart Brink stories are on the way.